We do have some other trustees coming, but we're going to go ahead and begin. We're going to call this meeting to order. Michael, could you call the roll?
Ms. Bunce?
Here.
Mr. Corrigan?
Here.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes,
Ms.
here.
Fryer?
Here.
And Mr. Parker?
At this time, the approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of 2025 and the organizational meeting of 1/16/2025, as well as the joint finance and human resource committee meeting of 1/14. If there's no additions or omissions, I move for adoption.
Second.
Ms. Bunce?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes,
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
thank you. Our first order of business is a presentation of our endowment portfolio. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Susanna Jason. I'm with PNC. I'm going to do a brief capital market update. Last year was a fantastic year for the markets, especially domestically. S&P was up almost 25%, outperforming international markets. The portfolio did benefit from those returns. It was very concentrated, especially in the first half of the year, in the Mag 7. So about 30% of the market made up of 7 companies. Going forward, there's a lot of uncertainty. We do anticipate, with valuations as high as they are, we think earnings are going to be about 15% domestically, 9% internationally. So what that means, again, I think the U.S. is going to be a primary driver globally, economically. And then we also think that concentration is going to disperse. So the 493 are going to catch up from an earnings perspective, or at least start to converge with the Mag 7. The things that we're keeping an eye on are obviously interest rates and what the Fed does with the fund rate. Inflation was cooling off. We got a little bit of a scare with the most recent print. PNC economists still think there are about 2 cuts this year to the Fed's fund rate, 1 in March, 1 in September. We are keeping an eye on inflation though, because that could quickly come down to 1, depending on if it doesn't dissipate as quickly as we think it will. But going forward, again, 15% earnings growth domestically. We think that's a positive environment for the equity market, especially like making sure that we look at quality and fundamentals in companies and not so much just the Mag 7 this year.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having us on the agenda today. What I'm going to do, I'll reference page 77 of the material, and we'll keep this brief and hit only the high notes. And so we'll cover the performance of the endowment and the asset allocation. And what we'll do is, I think if we go to page 77, which will be pretty far along, you'll notice that this will be a snapshot taken through January, the end of January of this year. And when we get there, you will notice that we are 67.4% in equities through the end of January. The target is 65. And yeah, that might be.
It's at the very end.
Oh, it's okay. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
That would be right after this, probably.
I don't think the board's able to pull it up. I tried several times, so, but that's on our website, but.
Yeah. Trustee Parker, do you have it up?
I get an error message.
Yeah, I get an error message too.
My guess is this before all of those pages that are similar. Okay, we could do, yeah, let's go to page 35 if we could then. If we don't have. Keep going backwards, maybe a little bit to 35. Getting there close. We're close. Maybe a couple more.
42.
Okay, so this snapshot that you're looking at least on the screen, is through year-end 2024. And if you're able to make out those figures, what I will do is I'm going to give you the update as we sit here today. And the figures that I'm going to tout are not only through January, but actually as the market closed this Tuesday, February 18th. So whereas at the end of the year, we had 65% or so in equities, which is the portfolio's target, we're now at 67.4%. The majority of that, as Susanna mentioned, is in large caps, which is where you'd want to be, domestic large caps in particular. We have about slightly over 40% of the endowment is in large cap equities, domestic. And then we are underweight international, which has been the right place and right thing to do until this year. International has bounced back a little bit. We are right at close to the target in fixed income, which is 25%. We're currently at 24.1%. Alternatives, that would be liquid alternatives, are at 5.4%. And then we did have the normal annual spending distribution come out of the portfolio. I believe, Carrie, it was January 2, and that was almost $771,000 that came out. So these figures are reflecting what I'm about to cite to you is taking into consideration all that. So the net market value today, I think we might even be at a high watermark, Carrie. We are at over 32, almost 32.3 million. I don't recall it's being higher than that in years past. So I think this is actually the highest market value that the endowment portfolio has had in, I think, quite some time. So again, we're at about $32.3 million in total. And then in terms of performance, again, I'm going to update you now through the first month of 2025. And for the year to date, the portfolio is up 2.5%. So that's just the month of January. So equities have rallied and have done very well. So 2.5% for the month of January. For the 1 year ending January 2025, the portfolio is up almost 13%. 3-year average annual is over 5%. 5 years, over 7.6%. And 10 years, 7.2%. And we know you have a lot of agenda items. So that was the performance and asset allocation. And if you'd like us to cover anything else, we're happy to do that, or to just pause right now and cover if there's any questions or comments that anyone has.
I guess the best thing to do is to say sort of what, given the possibility of uncertainty increasing, what are the sort of steps that we're prepared to take or that we have on standby, if you will?
Excellent question. And so the portfolio is very well diversified. So the spend rate here is probably, in terms of percentages, is relatively low for endowments. The average endowment spend rate is somewhere in the neighborhood today of about 4.8%. The endowment here is usually somewhere in the area of around 3-ish percent, 3.5%. So it's actually a relatively low spend rate. And so what that allows us to do is when we build our asset allocation, we don't have to be terribly aggressive to hit a 5% spend rate, because we're only looking at maybe 3-ish percent. So the portfolio is very well diversified between equities, fixed income, and liquid alternatives. And we plan to continue to do that just because you never know. And international equities is a very good example where they've been down for really a decade plus relative to domestic large cap equities. And international now has led the market over the past month and a half or so of this year. So you just never know. We don't have that crystal ball. So we do diversify, and the portfolio is very well diversified. And you could even say it's somewhat conservative the way it's constructed right now. But again, it goes to the goals and objectives of the endowment portfolio for the library, which is, again, that spend rate of close to that 3.5%.
Thank you, Glenn. I just have a quick question, because we weren't able to pull it up and to see it. And of course, we do believe you, but is it okay if once we do get our copy or are able to review it, if we could direct our questions to Carrie so that she could refer them to you or help us with that so that we could have a thorough review? I thought it was just me, but then I come here, we all can't see it. So.
Yes, please do so. Sorry for that technical difficulty.
No,
it's
sure
on
it's
our
not.
end.
It's
Not
not
on
on your part,
You may
but,
Go ahead.
oh, now we have it?
Refresh.
Okay.
Go all the way out, back in, and press.
Okay. Somehow the link wasn't working, so we've got it working. But thank you. Glenn.
Excellent job.
Any other questions? Anyone?
I was just gonna, this is probably more for Carrie, only because of how crazy things have been in the last 4 to 6 weeks. Can we look, maybe next month, when 08 happened and the endowment and everything took a hit, can we look at what happened then so that we have some idea of what's past history when things go screwy? That would be great. Because I mean, I don't want to be negative, but on the other hand, this is just scary times.
And when do you want to do that? Like end of first quarter?
Yeah, somewhere in there to get just an idea of, so we know what happens. I guess what you'd say, it's sort of like our disaster planning for the physical plant. I'd like to know sort of where we've been historically when things have gone goofy. And I don't think they will, but there's so much politically that's goofy that who knows whether it'll affect the finances in the end or not, so,
And just to add to that very quickly, 2022 was even a more recent
yeah.
time when we had both equity and fixed income were double-digit negatives.
Right, because of the
Equity would be a more
COVID,
recent
yeah.
look back instead of going all the way to 2000. If we could do both.
Yeah, no, it's, yeah. Yeah, COVID happened sort of all at once, and '08 happened in more of slow motion. That's why I was thinking of that one, so. So I don't see it happening all at once at all, but on the other hand, a slow motion deterioration could happen, so.
We can certainly help.
Thank you, Lynn. We're always happy.
Thank you.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.
Well done.
So we're now going to move into the president's report. So I was thinking about doing something a little bit different instead of me just talking about certain things. I just want to probably go around and talk to the fellow trustees. We're all doing so much within our community for the library. So I just thought we all could share something special that was with, just like at the last meeting, Trustee Fryer shared some special moments that she had. And I thought we all are having special moments. So I'll begin. If you have done anything or would like to share things that are special to us or what we've encountered in the last month, I think that would be pretty cool. Last month after our board meeting, one of our past trustees, John Harrison, invited some of his neighbors, and we hosted them here, and it was very interesting. We had lunch with them. There was about 10 or 12 of them, and they were elderly folks, and it was just so much fun. A lot of them may have been here or knew about us, but didn't know about us. But even just coming here, and it seemed like a lot of them were from the east side suburbs, and at their stage of life, a lot of them were never here, didn't realize how much we had to offer. So, and we did take them on tours of over here, and we did Maine. We took them to our exhibit at Brett Hall. I love the exhibit. I don't know if it worked well for people in walkers or wheelchairs, but that's over. So we learned real quick, get out of the sidelines. So, but it was fun, and they had fun, and they took it. They're like, what is going on? The one lady, I was just dying laughing. She was ready to fight that robot. I think it's because of the sensors. It was just funny, and she found it funny, but she was ready. She was ready to deal with that.
They were feisty.
Michael Dalby was awesome, and just working with them was wonderful. I think we did an excellent job at entertaining. But that was my fun moment last month. So I don't know if anybody else would like to share something they did or represented.
I guess all of us loved the opening of the MLK branch.
Yes, of course.
And today, you would not believe how many young people are in our auditorium. If you haven't seen how crowded it is, they had to stand room only crowd. And
We have a gentleman here who's representing. I'm sure they're going to talk about it later. Erica will be here as well. But I came in early just to get a sneak peek of the Man Up exhibit. And I thought, I'll go down to the auditorium and check it out. No, I wasn't. It was beyond standing room only. And it was okay. And I was all right to come up here and let the young man and the gentlemen in our community enjoy and
I
explore
don't
what
know
we
how
have.
many schools are represented. Do you? Both?
Yes, at least 22. Started with 22.
I think some are junior high and some are senior.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still thinking about the MLK grand opening, and my nieces won't stop talking about it because now they have this expectation they're always going to cut the ribbon, and I have to tell them that is not what's going to happen. And they felt so special. And then just today, actually, I was with Lamar at an event at the Cuyahoga County Welcome Center earlier this morning. It was the first newcomer day that happens every a few months, and last year it happened 8 times, this year will be quarterly. The library comes and helps newcomer families. Today was for the Congolese community, so giving away free books, helping them sign up for library cards, that's where I came from. Just from 9 until when I left at 11:30, 138 families came through.
Oh, I love it.
Really?
And
Wow.
the books were almost gone by the time I left, and Lamar brought a lot of books. So it was
All
really nice
Congolese
to
families,
all Congolese
130.
community members. And it was really nice to see the kids interact with all the cool fun stuff that he brought to like the coloring books and all the fun things. So it's always good to see like on the ground what CPL staff is doing. It's great.
It is.
I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I still am getting a lot of feedback from clergy that were there at the grant at the opening. And it's just, the opening, it was just more than just the library opening. It was bringing the city together and from a lot of different spaces. And letting people know how important the library system is. The library system is so important for our communities, for education, for stability in our communities. And it re-emphasized that. So it was a great time.
Thank you.
I have 2 that were last month.
Perfect.
At the Union campus, Legal Aid hosted a clinic on February 8th. And we had 50 patrons come in on a Saturday morning, which was a very big crowd for the Union team. And I talked to a couple patrons who it was the first time in the branch library, which was very cool. And they and just that partnership I appreciate very much with Legal Aid that we have. And then thank you to John, who helped my husband, who teaches at John Carroll, brought a couple colleagues down to Main Library to do some work ahead of a program they have at John Carroll. And one of his colleagues had never been to Maine and signed up for a library card. And so it was a nice introduction. So I very much appreciated that. So, go Blue Streaks.
Yeah.
And a John Carroll book.
You passed your part though.
I had the opportunity after the last meeting to go on another tour, and there's so much to discover every time you do a tour of the library, but also to see the new shelving and to go up into
So
the vault, and so just continuous gratitude for the staff for that project and what it continues to be, that labor of love. And it also helps me as a board member think about, what are the next steps in terms of making sure that we make sure those spaces are clean, and then also just tell people about the wonderful things that are in our collection. Even at the MLK branch, I think during the tour, we came upon, and I'm going to butcher it, but it was a collection of tree samples that are I'm butchering this already.
They are it's called The American Woods, and it's an author who was, I think, a doctor in the 19th century, collected samples of trees from across the United States and sliced them into very thin sections and then made books out of them. And we have one of the original sets, which is rare. It's a rare book. Ricketts 8 volumes, I think. It did it over the course of, I think, 40 years, and the last volume was done after he died, and it's really an extraordinary publication.
We came upon that just from me going, what is this? Because the way in which they're sort of encased is just fascinating. So hearing that story, which was a labor of love and a passion project for this person, came up at the MLK reopening and talking to a member of the foundation board who is very much so interested in that. He had no idea that was in the collection, but like other trustees, was just so grateful for all the staff. And just to see, I went on a tour of that space, I think the week prior, to see what had changed in that amount of time to accommodate that amount of people, just the camaraderie of the staff and how excited they were is great. And then had the opportunity to attend breakout sessions, and of course, it's just in the auditorium for the Man Up celebration. And one of the things that Erica impressed upon me, I think it was in January when she was talking about the event, is that how they really want to make sure that young people felt welcome and celebrated. And you can tell from the DJ, from the way the staff were engaging with students as they came into the various sessions, that it was an inclusive space. And both of the authors that I got a chance to sit in their breakout session talked about how they felt isolated, alone, not worthy in their special education classroom. And just the way in which students were interacting in the session, it's just important that the People's University continues to be an inclusive space where all is welcome. And so just really grateful for all the staff, no matter the role that they played in the event today, and I'm super excited about it. So thank you so much to Erica, all the staff who played a role in today's event. Can't wait to hear more.
Yeah,
Love it, Jasmine.
Perfect.
thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, everyone. We're now going to move into the director's report.
Well, thank the board for that. That, like, everybody needs a shot in the arm sometimes, and to hear it from our board that's really, really helpful. So I have some good, some interesting, and some better news. So let's start with some actually great news. We have our what we call Your Story Starts Here person, and Melody, you want to introduce her?
Oh, yeah.
So, good afternoon. I am delighted to present to you our second monthly edition of Your Story Starts Here. I want to introduce Regina Pietroria. She is with Dance Arts by Regina, and she's going to tell us her story of how the library has made her dreams come true.
I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. I'm gonna try to not get too emotional. Thank you for your introduction, Melanie. It has been my goal to create community and raise consciousness through my art form, dance. And the library has been a very important part of me doing that. As a young artist, when I moved to the Tremont neighborhood, I was so excited to live in a real neighborhood. And yet I couldn't even imagine at that time, this was in 2010, that the most important neighbor that I was going to meet was the library in my literal backyard. As a young and struggling artist, I relied on the library for important resources like the internet. And I had one special spot in my apartment where I could get the library internet. And I really needed that. I couldn't afford it. And I used the library for resources like books and DVDs, which, as Melanie says, might have been my side door to come in. When I began hosting my own classes, I would go to the Jefferson Library and print out materials to raise awareness, about the things that I was doing in the community. And eventually I was able to open my own brick and mortar location in the Tremont neighborhood in the fall of 2020, believe it or not. And even though so many people told me that it was never going to work to have an art school in the city and in that neighborhood, I have found, with the help of my library, the library, specifically the Jefferson branch, became sort of a hub for me, using the resources, again, like the internet, like print services, conference rooms, laptops, the librarian knowledge to be able to connect with my community. And fortunately, the story is not just a one-way street, because I've also been able to give back to the library. And I can't forget to mention Miss Karen Gravo's wonderfully curated collections of books that she has, helped to make more well-rounded camps and things that I have at my studio. And now that I'm right across the street from the Jefferson branch with my location, many families will spend the hour while one child is at dance class, spending the hour with their other children at the Jefferson branch. And over the years, I've been able to, with the help of librarians such as Alex and Karen, provide after-school programming at the library, exposing the children who come to the library to all different styles of dance with different instructors, and all free of charge for them, of course. And just something that they wouldn't normally maybe get exposed to. In addition to that, we've also done programming at the South Branch in partnership with Scranton Elementary. And we also have developed a partnership with the Carnegie West branch, you may have heard. And
It
I
was
do-
your group that put on the Nutcracker. I loved it. Oh, that was amazing.
And these programs at this point, I would say maybe this has been going on for about 7 years. And they've now reached thousands of children and adults on the near west side of Cleveland. And, you know.
Stephanie Herbeck gave a tribute to you, by the way.
Oh,
I guess her grandchildren are going to the
Yes.
dance studio, right?
Yes.
She's, of course, the icon from Near West Theater.
Yes, absolutely, where we also perform, so it's a
Oh.
whole, you know, connection.
you've used
And
that
I've known
theater.
Stephanie for many years too, right, when I was starting out, I met her, so.
Fabulous.
I just want to say that, the library has had a profound impact on my life, and I'm deeply, deeply grateful.
So I see Alex is here from Jefferson.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
Oh. Hello, everybody. My name's Alexander Story. I'm from the Cleveland Public Library Jefferson branch. I'm the librarian assistant there. And I met Regina a couple years ago. She would always frequent the library. And like a good service worker, I introduced myself and talked to our patrons frequently because I'm there all the time. So we noticed that she was doing her dance studio, and you know, we chatted, and she was interested in working with kids. And obviously, we communicated with me and Miss Karen about doing a program at our branch with our kids. Our neighborhood is small. We don't get that many kids. We get a lot of kids after school. And a lot of kids after school, since we don't have any computers, they sit around in our board, especially the young girls. So this dance program had them extremely excited. They always ask for it to come back. I got a couple interviews from the girls, and they were just like, "Is it coming back?" And as soon as I mentioned it, I was like, "Oh, no, not yet. We can work on it." But the kids love the program, and they love our libraries, and our patrons love our libraries, and connecting with them to see if they want to do stuff with the kids is always awesome. So that's all I have to say on that.
Could I ask
Thank you.
Schools closest to you are what? Montessori?
Tremont Montessori and Neo Prep. So
Uh-huh.
Northeast Ohio College Preparatory,
Oh,
which is
okay.
actually down there at Manor. So we
Okay.
have about 20 kids from Neo Prep.
Oh, good to know.
Excellent. So, you know, obviously you guys know with two daughters that are dancers, I'm a big believer in that dance can change people's lives. So I have asked Miss Tiffany to take on more of an example of looking at how we can bring more dance to the overall. And so Tiffany is passing along a card to Miss Regina. That's what we did. All right.
Well, it's nice though too, Director, that we are supporting our neighborhoods
Yeah.
that we are in as well. You know, instead of going outside of Cleveland, let's support the people that live here and support us as well.
That is true. So real quick, so some not so good news is that in Columbus, we're getting reports from OLC that there is a growing number of State House folks who are interested in either cutting or eliminating the PLF. And that number she says, is growing, and that we need to get all of our directors, trustees, fiscal officers, everyone that we can to email your House rep and let them know that we do not want the library fund to be cut. And that that our folks believe in libraries. It's not at a point where we need to bring this out to every one of our patrons, as we did in 2009 when everything went just kind of completely off the rails. But it's they are very surprised at how far this has gotten to this point.
So, but for example, in my case, Tristan Rader, I'm sure is very pro-library, but are there other representatives or other people more influential in Columbus than somebody like him who's brand new?
I think what we want all of our reps to do, and you know, this is a thing where she's sending it out to everyone, right? It's better when we could, you know, obviously our reps tend to be very supportive of libraries and historically are. But the more they know and the more they can talk to their colleagues, the better, right? And so we're not at a point where we need to start targeting various folks. Although on the Senate side, Jerry Serino is going to be doing a talk at the City Club. And that is something that I'm thinking a number of our libraries in the Cuyahoga County area are going to match up and start buying some tables for, so that we can have that conversation with him about the importance of libraries.
Yeah.
April 15th, 16th.
Is there an opportunity, of course, for those of us who are able to go to the Capitol March 6th?
April 8th.
It's April 8th. I know, think I'm mixing up dates now, but to use this as a opportunity as well.
Absolutely. What we know is now that we're in a place, because this is the budget year, that we're going to have a number of touch points with them. In the governor's budget is a slight increase for libraries, right? They're not talking about just going and cutting it back to what it was previously. They're talking about making huge cuts or eliminating it all in total.
I saw a post on Facebook early this morning, and I was hoping it was a bad.
Yeah, it's kind of where we are right now. You know, there's just a lot of rancor out there right now, and we just have to understand that and you know, just not add. Got to be careful about how we talk about things. We just don't need to add to the fire or bring someone to notice us who we don't want them to notice us.
That's why I'm not saying anything about the $500 million in private school tuition support
Oh,
that
my
the budget currently proposes.
I do have a question related to state senators and reps. I mean, just because of like Ohio Library for the Blind, right? Like we actually have a reach that's farther than some other libraries.
Yeah.
So I would appreciate knowing who else we should, you know, to Alice's point, perhaps like send an extra email to, right?
Okay.
That would be helpful.
Shanice will-
Well, can you keep us
Yeah,
updated
Shanice
or
is
send us
working on that,
information?
and Michelle Francis is getting to a place where they generally kind of like, okay, now make that first contact with your rep. Now here we're going to expand that. Here are some folks who might be on. We've never really got to a point recently where we have more people leaning one side or whatever. It's like 4 or 5 people who say they have a problem, and then everything else works its way out. But that's an increasing number to about 10 right now, and we just don't want it to grow.
Gotcha.
Oh, dear.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll leave that at, I mean, you guys went over Man Up and MLK, which were super successful.
Yeah.
And speaking of super successful, there is Erica.
We just put you in charge of 6 more committees.
Thank
I'll
you.
turn it back over to you.
There are no communications at this time. We're gonna move to the Finance Committee report. Trustee Corrigan, please.
Yeah, and I, only because we usually customarily do this, at this time, I'd like to move a resolution to waive the regular rules and that all the committees that are being reported today did not have prior public meetings, and that we're moving to the full committee of the full board, which each of these committees are part of. Is that appropriate resolution? So I'd like a second to that, so that we're suspending the rules to be able to proceed with our committees in this fashion rather than with the prior committee meetings.
Second,
Ms. Bunce?
yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Rashid?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Resolution 1 of the Finance Committee is a resolution to accept the gifts for the month of January. Be resolved that the gifts described in the gift report for January 2025 be accepted upon the conditions connected with said gifts in accordance with Section 3375.40K of the Ohio Revised Code. So moved. And is there some monster there we should know about? Just the
No, the major amount of funding is from the Cleveland Public Library Foundation for the 2025 support. And it's allocated really amongst the three funds, the Founders Fund, the Early Literacy, and the Public Artwork Fund to support the digital literacy, ops programming, arts and culture, and early literacy.
It's great.
Second.
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Rashid?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Exhibit 2 is a resolution to accept grant funds from Cuyahoga County, as soon as it comes up here. I should have read it while I was in the other form.
You want mine? Here.
No, it's just slow loading here. I don't know
Oh,
why.
here.
Oh, I know why. I'm not on the library's internet. Hold on. I can
Okay,
fix
all
that.
right, get there.
I'm still on the, for some reason. There we go. Okay, now we should be fine. A resolution to accept grant funds from the Child Care Resource Center of Cuyahoga County, Inc., doing business as Starting Point for MyCom out-of-school time transition programs, a longtime project of this library. Resolved that the Board of the Cleveland Public Library, pursuant to the authority granted in RC 337540K, formally accepts this grant from the Child Care Resource Center of Cuyahoga County, Inc., doing business as Starting Point in the amount of $75,000, and be it further resolved that the Executive Director, CEO, or designee is authorized to enter into and execute such agreements and instruments as may be necessary or appropriate to effectuate the terms of this resolution, which agreements and instruments shall be subject to the approval of the library's Chief Legal Officer. So moved.
Second.
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Rashid?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Exhibit 3 is a resolution to advance cash from the general fund of the MyCom fund. This is our usual way of making sure that when we're reimbursed later, it doesn't hold up cash flow for a current program. Be resolved upon adoption of the resolution to accept grant funds from the Child Care Resource Center of Cuyahoga County, Inc., doing business as Starting Point, the immediate previous resolution. This board authorizes that the general fund advance cash in the amount of $75,000 to the MyCom fund for the same purposes for which the funds were established and for which repayment in equal amount is made within a year, or at least until all requests for reimbursements have been received. So moved.
Second.
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Rashid?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Trustee Corrigan, if I could just commend, Shanice and Jacqueline. You don't continue to get $75,000 on a continual basis every year. I mean, you guys see this come to you, but it means that we keep doing what we're supposed to do, and that therefore they're willing to give us the money every year. And so I just wanted to thank you guys for the hard work that you do on doing that.
Exhibit 4 is a resolution to enter into agreements and/or establish funding requests for the off-premise Wi-Fi hotspot lending program for the rate funding year 2025, July 1st, 2025 through July 30th, 2026. Whereas the school and libraries E-rate program provides discounts to assist eligible schools and libraries to obtain affordable internet access, telecommunication services, and this program is a follow-up to that effort. Be it resolved that the Board of Library Trustees authorizes library management to pursue all possible discounts available to the school and libraries E-rate program for Wi-Fi hotspots and services, and to establish funding requests by filing FCC Form 471, including those in excess of $75,000. Be it further resolved that the board authorizes Executive Director, CEO, or his designee to execute agreements subject to the approval of Chief Legal Officer for hotspots and services requested, including those in excess of $75,000, to be charged to Object Code 54905 hotspots. So moved.
Second.
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Rashid?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Exhibit 5 is a resolution to accept a grant from the Ohio Humanities Council for the 100th anniversary of the celebration of Main Library. Whereas the library's historic main building has served as a vital source of books, research materials, and information for generations of Clevelanders, where the library will celebrate the 100th anniversary of the main library in 2025 with a year-long series of programs. Whereas the Ohio Humanities Council awarded the library a $16,000 grant to support this milestone celebration. Be resolved that the board, pursuant to the authority granted under RC 337540K, formally accepts a grant from the Ohio Humanities Council in the amount of $16,000 for deposit to the Founders Fund account 2030442-4210023901, federal aid, and be it further resolved that the executive director, CEO, or his designee is authorized to enter into and execute any necessary agreements or instruments to implement the terms of this resolution, subject to the approval of the library's chief legal officer. So moved.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Mr. Kerrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Shi?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Exhibit 6 is a resolution authorizing lease of space in the Cleveland Arcade. Whereas 2025 marks the 100th anniversary of the main library building, which opened to the public to much acclaim and fanfare on May 6, 1925, following 2 years of construction. It has been open for the public ever since. Whereas the library is planning to commemorate this amendment occasion with a celebration on Saturday, May 10th, that is slated to include music and family-friendly activities in the Eastman Garden, a debut of the 100th anniversary commemorative library card, and if necessary government approvals are obtained, unveiling of an Ohio historical marker to be placed in front of the main library. To further mark this occasion, increase foot traffic and attendance to the library, and to bolster the foundation's fundraising efforts, the library desires to lease the space formerly occupied by Campbell's Popcorn in the Cleveland Arcade for the purpose of operating a gift shop and library showcase in collaboration with the Library Foundation. Whereas the collaborative space will be operated jointly by the library and the foundation and will feature a rotation of items on display. Whereas the collaborative space also will house the foundation's gift shop, which will feature a variety of quality products from the library, including branded items, library-themed merchandise, etc. Whereas Skyline Investments, the owner of the Cleveland Arcade, has offered the former Campbell space to the library at a rental rate of $20 per square foot on a triple net basis, which amounts to $1,761.66 per month for the 1,057 square foot space. All utilities are the tenant's responsibility. And whereas Skyline Investments is offering a 36-month lease with no rent for the first 3 months and the option to terminate at any time during the first 2 years. Whereas the use of the library funds to lease space for the operation of collaborative space requires expenditures at the library be a proper public purpose. Now therefore resolved, the board declares the expenditure of funds for the lease of space from Skyline Investment for the purpose of operating the collaborative space as described in this resolution to be a proper public purpose, and that the benefit to the library resulting from increased fundraising by the foundation and increased visibility and attendance at the main library outweighs the cost of leasing the space. And be it further resolved that the board authorizes the executive director, CEO, or designee to negotiate and execute a lease agreement with Skyline Cleveland Acquisitions LLC according to the terms set forth in the offer to lease on file with the board secretary, in which lease agreement shall be subject to the approval of the library's chief legal officer, and which lease payments shall be charged to the general fund account 19010053-53510 rent leases. So moved. Obviously, this is
This
a good.
sounds amazing.
Yes, it does. Can we have somebody?
Yes,
Or-
I will start and then I will pass it on
Thank
to
you.
Shanice and then to Brian to give the overall legal piece of this.
Thank you.
So initially, Skyline had Tom Yablonsky, who's a local person who wants to bring a lot of cultural groups together and was trying to pull together and still trying to work on having a series of cultural organizations move into the open spaces within the arcade. Right, we need to do something to fill up the arcade back to what it was. So they invited the library to have the discussion about that. And during the part of the discussion, you know, we found out the Campbell's was there and that we could possibly look at that as an opportunity. So this really happened very quickly, or you would have heard about this earlier. So we started working through the discussion about the fact that they would bring in 3 free months and we could do this and we could move this in. And I knew that also the bookstore and the gift shop was still one of those things that we could not figure out how to make happen. And so it just seemed to make a lot of sense. And so Shanice was brought in, and I will turn it over to you then.
As well, just to introduce her and her role. So just to underscore what the director has stated, this was just like a wonderful opportunity that was very serendipitous to have that level of real estate on Superior at the former Campbell's location. I just want to underscore what our primary objectives are as it relates to the gift shop component and the hybrid space with the library. Our focal point is to attract new audiences. There are a myriad of people who go to the hotel that may or may not know that the library is directly across the street. We firmly believe by having a presence there in such close proximity that we could elevate attendance at the library in addition to showcase and highlight library collections with the objective of whetting the palate over across the street and enticing them to go over to learn and explore more. Number two, we want to highlight local entrepreneurs. I am so grateful to have Nicole here, who's going to go a little bit more into detail. But once you hear her background and how she's created something from nothing by elevating local entrepreneurs. We want to be able to feature local Cleveland people's products in this library gift shop. We want CPL branded items, we want library themed items, and we want other quality products that people would want, created by who? Local Clevelanders. The third, and probably one of my favorite parts, we want to make some money. And so, we will be crunching numbers, looking at the rent and ensuring that we're recouping that money. But the overall goal is to raise more money so that we can invest it back in the programs, great things that we do to enhance our community each and every day. So those are our three primary objectives, but I would like the opportunity to introduce Nicole McGee, who is our new fundraising manager, who will be overseeing the gift shop.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Board of Trustees. Much like the previous speaker, I feel like the library has been a major part of my life since I moved to Cleveland 22 years ago as a newbie and just thought I was coming to the state for my first job, and then I never left. So my background is in sociology and advertising, but what I have been able to do as it relates to this position is open up 6 different pop-up shops throughout the city years ago. And then most recently, for the past 10 years, I ran an social enterprise in the St. Clair Superior neighborhood called Upcycle Parts Shop, which is a secondhand art supply store where people donated material. Well, they continue because I'm not there and it continues, but they donate secondhand art supplies, much like a thrift shop meets an art supply store. So through that work, I got to partner with the library more and more, and I'm thrilled to be here. It's been 1 month, and I love momentum because this is very fast. But the work that I've done through Upcycle Parts Shop has, really exemplified for me the power of community-based storefronts. People know how to enter them for many reasons, and we all know that talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. So when Shanice and I started discussing this position, I was really motivated to support the library with, innovative revenue streams and thinking about how we could bring the idea of a gift shop back, as well as highlight local makers and manufacturers. There's a lot of Clevelanders making amazing things, and we all know that many people love libraries. So sort of pulling those together and creating the library shop as a place that you can not only get wonderful gifts, but you can feel what Cleveland is and does, and support the library.
Remind us where the Campbell, the popcorn was, on the lower
Right
level?
across the street.
Oh, it's on Superior. Yeah, it's just opposite. It's
Right on Superior.
So if you
Yeah.
look at the arcade and you see the valet hanging out, it's just immediately to the left of the valet.
Oh, okay, because I was sad when the ice cream one went away,
That was a good.
Yeah.
They had good ice cream sandwiches.
We have neighbors across the archway that are the coffee shop. So we're hoping for
Right.
some partnership.
Oh,
I think this is a great idea.
My only question is, are you going to be able to keep hours better than the libraries or identical libraries? What's the plan there?
The plan is to figure out the answer to your question.
Okay.
Even if they keep the library hours, those are technically business hours.
Yes.
Right, I'm thinking more on Sunday in particular, that Sundays are, I'm always,
You were right.
One of the things the director has charged us with is really building a strong volunteer pool so that we can do that. So, you know, as we're looking to launch this very soon, we are looking for volunteers, and we're gonna be looking at revamping our volunteer program. So if you know anyone who you think would be interested in helping us, but that's really gonna help us build that capacity, trustee Corrigan, so we can have extended.
Yeah, and so the idea why we would needed to move so quickly is we would like to have some things situated by April. We'd like to have some hours as the first wave of people come at the opening day for the Guardians, which is going to be against the Chicago White Sox, which means there'll be a lot of folks visiting. So we'd like to be able to have some hours there, but ultimately, May 6th, which is going to be the celebration, or is it May 10th is the celebration?
May 10th.
May 10th, which is the Saturday, we're going to do the celebration of the 100th anniversary. And we want to make sure that we're sending people across the street to be able to purchase things. So that, you know, spring and summer are going to be the major time to make money, and we need to be open. So that's why we needed to move so quickly. And Brian has any answers of any legal questions you might have.
Well, I do thank you for providing us with a copy of the lease agreement. Even just looking at it, I like that they have that option after a year, you know, so we can revisit it. So I do appreciate you handing that to us.
And
so
your
that we can
legal
take a
advice
better
is
look.
this is a proper public purpose once we declare it.
Yes, just a couple of things to point out. I feel like we have very favorable terms here, being proposed to $20 a square foot on a triple net basis means that that's including tax, because it will be a taxable use, there'll be a gift shop. It includes common area maintenance and insurance, so we're just paying $20 a square foot plus our utilities. Most retail in downtown Cleveland, that's within a couple of blocks of public squares in the range of $22 to $25 a square foot. Plus, we have an incredible amount of flexibility. If this becomes a very popular location, we can keep it open for 3 years, locked in at $20 a square foot, and then renew at a new term. If it turns out that it's not as popular as expected, we can close on 30 days notice for the first 2 years. So giving us the flexibility of having a month-to-month contract, but also the price savings of a 3-year term.
You're saying it would be a month-to-month
It is-
only after the first year?
No, in fact, it would be akin to having a month-to-month
Because we have the right to terminate.
But they want us to start with signing a lease for,
for 3 years, but we have the right to terminate on a month's notice. So it gives us the flexibility of a month-to-month lease, but we're tied in for a longer period if we so choose. And then with the board's determination of that the added foot traffic, exposure, and so forth are beneficial to the library, it will be a proper public purpose with standing scrutiny.
And our anticipated open date is what day again?
said April?
April 8th for the ball game, I think is tentatively a soft opening, I believe is the
Yeah.
term, and then May 10th for the centennial celebration and full opening.
Nice.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded. Is it voted on already?
We have to vote on it.
Okay. Did we vote?
I don't think.
No, we
I
did
don't-
not
I don't
vote.
think
We
we vote.
seconded, but we need a vote.
I don't think we voted,
Yes.
Right.
but we stopped. Trustee Rodriguez stopped it before you went for the vote.
Thank you. Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Ritchie?
Yes.
Ms. Pryor?
Yes.
And Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Thank you.
Exhibit 7 is a resolution authorizing discontinuance of contract negotiations for Enterprise Resource Planning System. Whereas the library, November 17, 2022, the board authorized the library to engage with the Government Finance Officers Association to provide first phase advisory and planning services regarding a future enterprise resource planning system. Whereas part of that process, we sought out vendors and had an evaluation committee rank 3 firms which were determined to be best suited. That was in October of 2024. We proceeded, and the top-ranked firm was Infor. We proceeded to negotiate a contract with Infor, but during subsequent discussions, it became apparent that the Infor system wasn't able to adequately operate on some of the cash basis and other system perspectives that we wanted the system to accomplish. And whereas the library's primary goal in identifying a new ERP system has been to find a single system capable of adequately performing all the core functional service areas. And however, the participation in these demonstrations of the 4 industry-leading ERP systems, we suggested that the best way of the library to move forward, and particularly in light of current Munis system's ability to meet the needs of the department, as well as the fact that JobVite, the applicant tracking system, has been successfully implemented and launched, which along with Munis is currently adequate to meet our needs. And because the library has not yet signed a contract with Infor, whereas the library believes in ceasing negotiation with Infor at this time will result in substantial savings of money, time, and effort, be it resolved, the board hereby finds that it is in the best interest of the library to discontinue contract negotiations with Infor and to implement the business process improvements recommended by GFOA. Be it further resolved, the board instructs the library administration to discontinue negotiations with Infor and to work to implement those business process improvements recommended by GFOA that are capable of being implemented using the library's current ERP system. So moved.
Could we learn
Yeah.
a little bit more?
So, Carrie and I can answer any specific questions, but I think it might be helpful just to give a little bit more of an overview of how we got to where we are right now. So our initial plan for doing the RFP and selection of a new enterprise resource planning system was that we felt that we needed a single source solution that would handle all of the HR, payroll, finance, purchasing, and legal needs in a system. Once we got down to our top 4 and we sat down and started seeing their demonstrations, we began to see that that might not be the case. We felt that Infor was in fact, and we still believe that they were the most qualified of the 4 firms that we ranked. But after further discussions during contract negotiations, after further demonstrations and meetings with their references and other local users of the system, like Cuyahoga County, we realized that one key feature to our system, which is the ability to perform cash basis accounting, their capabilities were not up to par with what our current system offers. And because that is such a large portion of what the system will be used for, we felt that that could in effect be sort of a step backwards in terms of that functionality. The Infor system does a lot of things and a lot of things very well, but that was one thing that we felt would be a hindrance for moving forward. Through this process, because we've been working with GFOA since 2022, they have met with every functional group in the library that will interact with any ERP system. And through this process, they have developed a laundry list of recommendations for how we can improve processes, with the original idea that these would be the processes that we would implement with, in this case, Infor. But we are able to implement many of them right now. We're going forward with our Munis system, which we believe the Munis system currently suffices for finance and will require some upgrades to be able to function optimally, along with the JobVite system that this board authorized the library to contract for in 2024 or late 23. We believe we'll be able to function for the near future with the current systems, but believe that it would be ultimately in the library's best interest at some point, perhaps a year or 18 months out, to reevaluate our need for an ERP system, with the key understanding that we're no longer looking for an single ERP system solution. It could be an HR solution, a finance solution, and a separate solution perhaps for.
Yeah, our hope was to fold it all into one with job fight and everything into one integrated solution. And now the way that Infor did quote us, they quoted us on a big bang implementation approach, which given our current circumstances right now, we would have to break that approach into a phased approach, which would have meant that finance would have to go first, and not knowing how long it would be before the remainder came on, it would cost us a lot more money, and us not operating fully on a cash basis was, the unknowns were too risky right now, since we actually didn't sign a contract.
The other aspect I want to say historically is that this library's been on cash basis accounting for my entire
Yeah, and that's
38
what makes
years.
us unique. See, like other big governments, they all run accrual.
Right.
You know, so, I mean, and that's their basis is accrual.
And accrual's a legitimate system, but it's not as conservative as, or as careful as a cash basis
And
system.
we will convert to accrual at the end of the year, but our day-to-day, we have to report out on a cash basis, where cities and counties do not. They report out on accrual.
And that's the other reason. So not being able to accommodate our cash basis needs is a pretty big reason to stop the negotiations in my book. So.
Yeah, it could be accommodated, but it would be 2 steps backwards from where we're at right now.
That's great.
And we do feel that even though significant time and effort has been invested in this process, there really isn't anything lost right now. We're at a perfect point right now to pivot. We don't have a signed contract. We're under no obligation to move forward. We have now seen what's out there in the market. We have an RFP that we can modify and reissue in the future. We even have a short list of vendors now that we could even just invite back to propose on those parts of a system that we might be interested in. So we feel that this is actually it's considered a very good situation for the library to be in before embarking in a $7+ million project.
No, it's very wise.
Oh, and
Good
I
use of
want to commend
taxpayer.
your analysis and the consideration and fully support what you're
Salute.
going. So,
That sounds good.
so we've had the motion and second.
Ms. Butt,
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian,
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Rashid,
Yes.
Ms. Fryer.
Yes.
Exhibit 8 is a resolution authorizing construction, operating, and reciprocal easement agreement and transfer of real property for the new Walls Branch project.
It's exciting.
It is the longest resolution on today's.
Well,
I am so
but,
excited to hear about it.
well,
Attached.
well, let me tell you,
What?
not so much, but Brian will explain.
It will be the longest resolution, maybe not, on the March board
Okay.
agenda. I prepared that for this month, being perhaps a little more optimistic than I ought to have been. We are, I believe, very close in negotiations for what we call the COREA, the Construction, Operation, and Reciprocal Easement Agreement for the Walls Branch. Our outside counsel unfortunately had the flu and was out of the office all of last week. So we weren't able to get our draft back to our partners at Northwest Neighborhoods until Monday evening. So we're not in a position right now to say we've got 100% agreement on all the key points. We'll get into that position very soon. So for now, we recommend just bringing it back next month, at which time we will also be presenting for approval our guaranteed maximum price and the project budget for the Walls Branch.
So I move that Exhibit 8 be deferred to next month's agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Butts,
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian,
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Rashid,
Yes.
and Ms. Fryer.
Yes.
And
So is there an anticipated April or May groundbreaking based on where we're at now?
I will let John answer that. I believe it would be in April groundbreaking.
That would be the earliest we'd schedule a specific date, but yeah, we are still on track on the construction end of things. Gilbane has opened bid, we've been through extensive bid leveling and scope review evaluations with every subcontractor proposed from the contract. We've extracted what the shared costs are, both from the West 80 Karen side to the library, which is the majority of the shared costs, and then those shared costs back from the library to Karen. So that's sort of an exhibit to the Korea. So we are on track, as Brian had mentioned, to have the guaranteed price amendment to Gilbane's contract presented next month, along with the overall library project budget.
That's exciting.
Then at that point, once the documents are signed, we could schedule the groundbreaking as soon as we get everybody's schedule lined up. Gilbane's confirmed they're ready to start actual work. Assuming
Wonderful.
everything moves forward as we think it will in the next 30 days.
Did that annual meeting, and
Next week.
it's next week, okay, can we make sure we get, I know that there was at one of our last meetings, we talked about
It's the
supporting
20
your presence
20.
there. If we can just get confirmation of when it is.
Yeah, and I might ask Brian to double check something. A couple of us live within the service area of that CDC, been asked to become formal members. And I didn't know whether it's a $5 membership, so
I
it's
saw
kind of
that.
de
Yeah, I
minimis.
got one too.
So
But
Stephanie,
whether,
go on, sir.
but whether it's appropriate for us to be members, I don't think there's a problem with that, but if you can double check.
Certainly. Good, when you say member, you mean just a member of the organization in general, and not a board member?
Not a board member, it's just a membership. It's a, CDC has an open membership for people who live within the CDC area, so. But I just, whenever I put $5 down, it's not a big deal, but on the other hand, I don't want somebody to think we're in conflict in some way if we
So
act.
this whole thing, I think, is contingent on, we have to, in order to finance the construction of the senior apartments, they have to be getting low-income housing tax credits. And who do they get those from? I mean, is any
CMHA.
federal agency jeopardized now for giving those kind of tax credits?
I can't speak to that. These were open tax credits. There was always anticipated to complete their financing.
Right, I just wondered, who do they apply to? Do you know?
It was-
CMHA.
Well, they're applying, what they're using CMHA for is to help them in getting residents that they can get through that. But
Right.
they had, the funding was state funding that they have gotten. My understanding of many of these things, and, having been with a whole bunch of directors and having this discussion, is if money has been sent to the state, that money is more likely going to be spent. It's not going to be held. And the federal money,
it's already
federal
done.
money that is still at the federal level is not,
Okay.
Maybe in jeopardy.
Maybe in jeopardy. But if it's been sent out already, it's been approved by the Congress, and it needs to be spent.
Uh-huh. So that already has happened. It sounded here like it hadn't happened yet, like they still,
So maybe it'd be helpful here to just remember where we were at. We anticipated this agreement in 2019.
Exactly.
Formally started in 2020. They were
Yeah.
unsuccessful in their tax credit application. We agreed to hold our end of the project for a year. They went back for the tax
Right,
credit in
right.
2021. They were successful. That was supposed to be their complete financing plan for the project. We opened bids a year later,
right,
and they found out they had a deficit.
right.
So the time we spent the last few years without the library open has been for their benefit. Their financing plan has gotten much more complex than just the Ohio tax credits. So
That's
they've-
what
they've-
I'm worried about.
so
Oh, these are Ohio tax credits?
So, yes, the tax credits that were initially awarded in 2021 are low-income housing tax credits, LIHTC, or issued from OFA, the Ohio Housing Finance Association.
Oh, that's what I couldn't.
And those are funds that come from HUD in Washington
Yeah.
to the states. That funding was initially thought to be sufficient to build the project based on pre-COVID estimates of the price. Then when COVID hit and prices skyrocketed, that's when we had to put the brakes on it, the project, and then take basically a, just shy of a 4-year hiatus while additional funding sources were identified for them. So they still have the same funding that they had in 2021, but they also have a lot of other funding sources now.
Thank you, sorry.
You're welcome. Their funding stack is very complicated.
Thank you.
But we believe everything is going to happen.
Yes. Thank you.
And Stephanie could speak to the 27th, right?
Yes, the annual meeting is on the 27th at Gordon Green, I think around 5:30. We were only given a set number of tickets and I'm working on getting more, so I will be in touch with the rest of them. I know Trustee Rodriguez is joining us. The library is receiving Community Partnership Award, and actually Trustee Shakarian is also receiving a neighborhood award for advocacy in that neighborhood.
Yeah,
So
right.
you will be well represented.
Yeah.
What is the date again?
February 27th.
I've been going to that for 20 years. I just didn't remember. the
Yeah.
date.
If anybody would like to join, just reach out to Stephanie, and Stephanie will work to make that happen.
Okay.
Okay, Exhibit 9.
Yes, that's what I'm pulling up. Exhibit 9 is a housekeeping exhibit, Second Amendment to Year 2025 appropriation, whereas the Ohio Revised Code 5705.40 provides for the amendment of appropriation measure. And the aggregate of all classifications does not exceed the total amount submitted to the County Budget Commission as presented this amendment. Resolve the sums indicated in the attached section amendment to the year 2025 appropriation schedule be approved. So moved.
Second.
Ms. Bunt?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Rashid?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
The remainder of the Finance Committee is the regular fiscal officers report, Report A, report on investments, Report B, Report C, the report on conference and travel expenditures, Report D, report on all vendor expenditures, Report E, the report on expenditures made from the owner's contingency fund for the Huff West, Park, Eastman, MLK, Rockport, and Glenville branches. Report F is a report on expenditures made from the owner's contingency fund for the high-density shelving project. Report G is the report on expenditures made from the owner's contingency fund for the new main library staff breakout project. And Report H, the report on expenditures made from the owner's contingency fund for the Tech Central renovation project, Report H. That concludes Finance Committee. Thank you for your understanding about reading these things quickly and moving.
Thank you, Trustee Corrigan. We're now going to move into the Human Resource Committee report. Trustee Shakarian.
Thank you. It is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Harriet Parks, Chief of Public Services, for a very exciting presentation about some changes in public services, specifically our branches.
Yeah. Hey, just Harriet, I know there's a couple of new staff members
Oh,
that
yes.
are here.
That would be lovely.
John Sturdy is going to do the honors of introducing our staff member from Main Library, and then I will do the same for our staff for the branches.
Sure. So thank you to the board. I have the pleasure of introducing, after a lengthy search, our new manager of Fine Arts and Special Collections. Yes. So I wanted to introduce our new head of Fine Arts and Special Collections. We've done a little bit of reorganization thanks to Ms. Parks, where we are moving our preservation department under the Special Collections. So I worked with Mrs. Parks and her team, and if I could have you come up, this is Leo Melias, our new head of Special Collections. All right.
Good afternoon, Director and Board. Thank you very much for the job. I need to raise.
You can write.
That's fine.
So I'm a Cleveland native, born and raised in Cleveland. I was born in East Memorial Booth Hospital, which I think used to be on Kidsman.
Right.
I think it closed late 90s, maybe.
Yeah.
Kind of grew up in the West 14th area before it became Fremont. Very much gentrified now, but still, there's still parts that, are lower income there. And then parents moved out to West Boulevard area. I lived in a duplex there for a while. And then sometime 1980, 81, ended up in North Homestead, where I mostly grew up and graduated North Homestead High School. So I'm coming mostly from higher ed academic environment. I spent time at Michael Schwartz Library, Cleveland State. I was at Kent State University for 7 years. And then I was at Bowling Green State University for close to 10 years. So I'm very much looking forward to this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. Go ahead, Jim.
I just have one question. I always ask the new person, how much do you know about chess and checkers, since that's part of Thank you.
Thank you, Leo.
And just so, Leo, Tremont used to be called South Side. That's what it was. I remember because I grew up in the area too. And I still sometimes slip and call it the South Side.
And I would like to introduce Brian here, who is the Fulton manager. If you could please stand.
Sorry, thank you.
Thank you for the job. I've been working in libraries about 20 years. Started as a teen specialist, so a librarian with a little L before I got my degree in Bowling Green, actually at the Wood County Library. Went to library school, worked at the law library at Pitt, the University of Pittsburgh to get my degree. I was a director right out of library school at a very small library in Liberty Center, Ohio.
I know where that is.
Southwest of Toledo. And then I grew up in Sandusky, so kind of came back to the area as youth services manager at Cleveland Heights, University Heights Public Library. And then after that was director down in Ravenna, Ohio at Reed Memorial Library. And then the last 3.5 years I was consulting. The firm did executive search specifically for public libraries. And I'm excited to be back in the public realm, and Fulton and the staff there have welcomed me warmly. So really excited to be on this team.
And remind me, is Ravenna a Cleveland Library?
They are not.
Okay.
The Portage County Libraries are actually their own little 3-library consortium between Portage County District, Kent Free, and Reed Memorial.
Okay.
I'm just curious if you speak Spanish.
I'm learning.
You'll need it.
My older daughter has about an 89-day Duolingo streak, and I've only got about 14 going.
Duolingo seems to be very popular with all my grandkids.
We're
Me too,
very-
that little bit.
We're very grateful to have those Spanish-speaking staff at the branch for sure.
Look forward to seeing you at Fulton.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So, to the board of trustees, Director Thomas, and everyone in the room, good morning. It is an honor and privilege to serve and be the servant leader of public services, and I thank you for this opportunity to allow us to explain our structure, not as a means to justify, but as a means to give insight into how we operate. So SPS has been under the direction of public services since March of 2021. And the vision for that was so that we could collaborate and align our work for those that are public facing and whose interaction with the community carries a profound impact. And so our system works because our staff does. And so it is incumbent upon us as leaders to ensure that we support our staff as they support and provide effective service to our public. Hence, the reorganization of public services. Please. So as we know, Cleveland Public Library is the People's University, the center of learning for a diverse and inclusive community. Next slide. Our vision for Cleveland is its library is a city in which opportunity is within reach, a library that empowers its people.
You could have made it with a sun or something. It looks like the tundra that we are. Just a joke. I was like, oh.
But just like Cleveland Public Library has a mission and a vision, so does the public services family. And so our mission is that the public services, SPS, and youth and family engagement will be a change agent, providing a 5-star customer experience through safety, effective programs, services, and world-class collections for our community. Our vision is that we will strive to empower a community where our campuses, security presence, and departments will deliver access to knowledge and resources, inviting meeting spaces and programs that meets the evolving needs of our citizens. Next slide, please. So our previous structure, we had Senior Director of Branches, which was Amia Hudson. We had a Regional Director East, which was Crystal Tansack, who had 14 campuses that she oversaw. Regional Director West, Michael Darby, who had 13 campuses for which he oversaw.
Michael Darby was promoted to Senior Director of Main Library, leaving a vacancy in Public Services, and Ms. Hudson led the Region West in addition to filling her role and responsibilities as our head. So our current structure, we met with Director Thomas, who has been an advocate and great about allowing us to restructure, as well as Ms. Sargi, who was very supportive in trying to help us design what this could look like. And we discussed the fact that the work could not stop. We had to make sure that we were being supportive to our community, as well as being supportive to what the staff needs were. And so in light of the different vacancies we had, as well as a lot of people were on leaves, we wanted to ensure that the work continued, and hence we have our structure now. So Ms. Hudson is currently on FMLA. We have our Senior Director of Branches, which is Crystal Tenzak. Regional Director East, Peter Roth. Regional Director West is Forrest Watkins. And Regional Director Central is Nick Durda. All of which are here today. I'm very proud of that. And at the end, if you have questions, you're more than welcome to help answering them. So this is our regional model. The branches aligned with each of the regions are shown forth. Next slide, please. So what would the new structure provide? I am so glad you asked. Prior to this structure, our regional directors were overseeing 13 to 14 branches each, which amounted to about 130 staff per region. And so the new model aligns with overseeing 90 staff at 9 locations each region. And this allows for us to have more individualized attention to our branches by the RDs, as well as have more frequent visits to provide the effective support that's needed. Now, salary scheduling is a monster because you have a lot of call-offs, you have a lot of people on vacations, which we have to contractually allow for, but you also have people who may just call in sick. There are people that's on different leaves. And so what our regional directors and our senior directors do, which is we work every Saturday. We sit and we actually just take staff and move them to where the needs are to make sure that we can effectively open up our buildings, because we want to be able to provide service for our community. And they do this every single Saturday. More time is spent per location to ensure accountability of professional development, discipline if applicable, interviewing, onboarding, branch checks, because our team goes in and do branch checks frequently, training and evaluation of staff. We support in leadership when there's the absence of a manager. When there's the absence and the manager is not there, our RDs go in and they serve in the stead of that manager. Provide support with evolving strategic plans. Director Thompson has charged us to do more programming, so we're accountable to do more. We need that support. Support reviewing schedules to ensure contract is followed. Handling timely patron concerns. Building issues. When our staff calls us and say the building is too cold or the building is too hot, you got to tell Ms. Park something more than that, because the building is not going to just be closed. Our team actually goes in to check those temperatures and to see if that is the truth. And we work alongside property management very closely to make an informed decision. Evaluations, program approvals, narratives for the director's report, vacation bidding, and staff meetings, etc., is what we do. Additionally, alignment with our SPS regional model to ensure a unified structure for supporting our community and our staff. Next slide. So here we have the regional model that SPS follows. And what I want to share is that on that previous slide, Director Boyne, he put a design to leverage radical hospitality. And we have all heard Director Thomas mention all about radical hospitality. But simply put, what it means is that we are to allow for people to feel welcomed and valued as they enter our spaces, to ensure that we're providing them a different type of experience, but also making sure that they have a safe space where they can be at. And this is just not for our external customers, but we should be doing this for our internal customers as well. and that is our staff. So for the local 860 contract, the parties understand that the number of mobile patrols deployed on any given workday shall be determined by the library based on the staffing and operational needs. The current staffing levels support a minimum of 3 two-person patrol units daily, and the goal is 5 two-person units based on full staffing. So once we get to that complement, that is our goal, is to have 5 two-person cars. This is the regional model that SPS has that mirrors the same locations as our branches. In addition to this, our SPS officers also visits the CDF and the Administration Library, which is in City Hall. Next slide. So why does a regional patrol model exist? It's relative, it's reactive, and it's flexible. It allows for more expedited time responses when there is a need and where help is needed. It increases opportunities to observe irregularities in the vicinity of the branch. Sometimes our branches does not know that there was a shot fired up the street, or they may not know that there's a fight that's actively happening, and we may have to go into lockdown. So we also extend ability to provide support for solitary officers assigned at the remote branches.
CDF again.
Increase officers' presence during emergent incidents. Keeps officers, staff, and patrons safe. And so we have learned throughout our state and a lot of training that increasing the officers' presence may reduce the need for use of force. Next slide.
Yeah.
So with our SPS managers and field supervisors, we have 2 managers. We have 1 manager that oversees the downtown operations, and we have another one that deals with the field operations, which is our branch locations. We have supervisors as well. There are 3. Downtown is 1 supervisor, we have a west supervisor, and we have an east supervisor. And they are providing more boots on the ground, going out, making sure that if we need to train any of our officers or have conversations with our Royce officers, our supervisors are there on the spot to take care of those things. So, in summary, public services structure will allow us to advance the library's mission. It allows us an opportunity to also be visible, efficient, engaged, proactive, and accountable to our communities and our stakeholders and our staff members. Thank you for your time and attention.
I have a question. I do, because I always got a question. I always, how are we at the staffing levels with SPS officers? Because I know for a while we were low, and we were always going for outside.
So currently we have 62 officers. We have 54 full-time officers, 1 part-time officer, and we have 7 safety aides. And our safety aides are the officers who still are able to provide service for our public, but they do not have the APATA training. So therefore, the APATA training and licensure, so therefore they are still able to give the service that's needed in our spaces, just like our voice officers.
So my other question leading up to that, is that decreasing the number of Royce security that we are using, just to make sure? As I signed the checks, I noticed something different going on.
Those numbers compared to our preferred complement on officers is 67, 68? 68, so we're down 5 or 6 right
Okay. But we're up from where we've been, because we were, so, yes, there's been a drastic increase, because I'm noticing. Okay.
And we're consistently interviewing. Director Goins had a meeting today on strategies for us to get those last officers that we need.
Okay. Yeah, that will reflect the money we're spending on Royce.
I want to make sure I understand what you were saying there. The word patrol is the same as security person.
Yes.
And you said 2 patrol units daily. Does that mean per branch, always at least 2 during one day? But then you also said the goal is 5 2-person units.
Vehicles. So referring to the cars that we send out to our locations to be able to respond to any situations that we have out there.
Right.
We have 3 contractually with the 860 contract. We have to have 3 two-person cars. meaning 2 officers to each of those cars to be able to respond. We utilize those officers also when there is need for backup. So in case that there's a big fight that's happening inside of location, those officers go out to support the officer that's inside of that location because it could be too much for them.
Right.
And so the goal is, once we get to complement, we want to have 5 cars out there to be able to provide more
But
of a
those,
response.
those 5 could go in any of those parts of either the west side or the east.
Central.
Where it's needed, yes.
Just for emergency.
Yeah.
Thank
the-
you, Ms. Parker.
Yeah, the idea was having them going and driving around in different libraries is, so they would be no more than 10 to 15 minutes away should something happen,
Yeah.
because they're already driving around in the region.
Thank you.
You know, can we see the staff that are here, the structure,
Sure,
Mhm.
regional directors?
So regional director, Eve is
Yeah,
here.
and
Ross.
Forrest and.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parker.
Well, I think everybody knows Monroe, but just, you know, and Mrs. Parks talks about it all the time when Monroe came on staff. Sometimes one person can make such a huge difference. And where we are with our safety and our protective services is a very different cry from where we were before Monroe was here. So I just want to appreciate all that you've done for us.
And I present to the board our regular employment report, Exhibit 10, detailing the new hires, transfers, resignations, retirement, termination. And it is a longer report because of our step increase based on contract. So moved.
Second,
Ms. Bunce?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
I'll abstain.
So noted. Ms. Rashid?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
And I present Exhibit 11, the retirement recognition citation presented to Virginia Murphy after 3 years of service as a page in the Social Sciences Department, Harriet Coleman after 15 years as a page at Ohio Library for the Blind and Print Disabled. Be it resolved that the citation for the above staff members presented by the Board of Trustees in appreciation of their faithful and dedicated service given to the library be recorded in the minutes of this meeting, and be it further resolved that the citation be sent to them forthwith. They are not present at this meeting of the Board of Trustees. So
Second.
moved. Thank you.
Ms. Bunce?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Rashid?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Are either Ms. Murphy or Ms. Coleman present?
No.
All right. Well, we are excited to send that to them. Thank you, staff. That is the conclusion of the Human Resources Report.
Thank you, Trustee Shakarian. We're now going to move into the community service report. Trustee Fryer, please.
Perfect. Report I is a monthly activity report. Anything of note that the staff would like to call our attention to? If not, then I'll turn it over to John for the voting status update.
Thank you, ma'am. Just a few things this month. We've already covered some of them. Thanks for the warm comments on the MLK opening. We're very happy about that. Glad to have an opportunity to talk about Walton a little bit so that next month when the resolutions come for both the reciprocal easement as well as the construction budget and the GMP, we'll be ready to receive those. Looking ahead from MLK, the next building opening we have will be Glenville is over 3/4 construction complete already, and we're just now with the director Mandel Foundation to find dates in the late May to early June timeframe. So just no date set yet, but just wanted to let you know that project is moving forward. Heard the question on the public services staffing. Sorry to say that the property management staffing in all of our building trades has remained low. That's custodians, generalists, painters, carpenters, and maintenance mechanics. So I want to proactively thank Lynn and her team With HR, we have a property management hiring blitz happening in Woodland tomorrow and Saturday, 4 hours both days, walking appointments. So really hoping to get back to full strength on the building side of the organization. And then just one property management update on an item that I mentioned last month, which is the Rice boiler installation is complete. There is a control panel on the rooftop unit, which was not part of the boiler installation, which still requires replacement, but the building is under temperatures and within our building parameters now, so we've been open. That's all I have, unless there's any questions.
I think Lynn has a question.
I just have a comment.
She raised her hand.
Yes, we're, as John mentioned, we have a blitz
Lynn.
tomorrow.
I'm sorry.
We have a hiring blitz tomorrow and Saturday. Our fingers are crossed. We worked collaboratively with SEIU, and so we are able to offer higher rates of pay for especially our trades positions. That's part of the reason that we've been unsuccessful is because our rates of pay were not competitive. Any of you know painters, carpenters, HVAC people, custodial, please send them over to CBF tomorrow or Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, John. I will turn it over to Shanice for the advocacy task force update and the foundation.
Sure. Director Thomas pretty much gave the advocacy update. I can work with Mr. Fisher and Stephanie on Boylston talking points that they gave for if you want to reach out to our legislators and also give you contact information so I can do that. And then as it relates to the foundation report, I just wanted to introduce Nicole and just the hiring of her. We are gearing up for our first board meeting March 6th, and we're also gearing up for our first annual solicitation, which is Library Giving Day on April 1st. So we will be developing a toolkit. We'll share that with you. It's primarily a social campaign where we get the most of our donor acquisitions during this period. So.
Thank you. It was great. I know some of the members of the foundation board, I believe, came to Man Up today, so it was good to see you folks walking around and saying hello to the Huntington folks who sponsored the event.
Yeah.
They did a nice session.
Thank you.
And I will turn it over to Ashley for the diversity, equity, and inclusion update.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Before Ashley starts, I just wanted to say this. There have been a lot of questions around for folks, especially in the library world. Should we do away with anything that we have around DEI? Should we rename it? Should we do this? All along, I have been working with Ashley, and Ashley, since she's been hired, has been moving the work that she's been doing somewhat away from the kind of diversity piece of it and much more toward the belonging piece. And that's why you see so much of us doing things all throughout, whether it's folks with accessibility issues or anyone, right? How do we make sure everyone who comes into the library feels like they belong? And so my sense of it is, and that I'm bringing to the board, is a sense that we're not changing at all, right? But I want to make sure that the board feels comfortable with who we are and what we want to be in the future. So Ashley's going to give you an update to what that is.
So belonging is not so far a word that's been excised from the dictionary in this country.
Well,
So I'm going to present to you today an update on our DIAE initiatives, diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, and belonging for this year, 2025. So when we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, and belonging, we like to talk about celebrating all, opportunities for all, recognizing all, accessible to all, and welcoming to all. Next slide, please. So, what does that mean? Next slide. Diversity. Diversity for Cleveland Public Library means that we provide services to our patrons without regard to race, class, sex, gender, socioeconomic status, religion, or creed. We recognize the importance of intersectionality and the impact of inclusion. We thrive and take pride in our inclusive culture, practices, and initiatives. We are an educational institution, and we do not support exclusionary practices as it relates to educating the public, such as book banning. Next slide, please. Back up one, please. Thank you. I don't know why it's showing that way.
Well, we've got it in
We
front
have
of
it
us.
on our screen.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, no worries.
It looks good here.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay. So we celebrate all, and you'll see a reoccurring theme here where we talk about all people. We celebrate our community and its rich culture that spans across the United States and around the world. And as we know, Cleveland is the melting pot for diversity. So this year, as it relates to diversity, the Department of DIAB will have several programs. As you know, we took part in the opening for the MLK grand opening. We will have our Black History Month program next Monday. The Crown continues. Well, we will celebrate one of our pioneers in Black history, George E. Johnson, who is the founder of Johnson & Johnson products. He's most notable for Ultra Sheen and Afro Sheen. So he will be streaming live from Chicago, and the co-author of his memoir, Hillary Beard, will also be there in person. The conversation will be facilitated by WKYC's own Sia New Yorker. So you all should have received a formal invite for that. We hope to see you there. In March, we will celebrate St. Patrick's Day. We'll also celebrate Developmental Disability Awareness Month, where we have extended an invitation to people with developmental disabilities in partnership with the Cuyahoga County Board of Developmental Disabilities and Youth Challenge. In April, we will be celebrating Eid. That will be at our MLK campus on April 6th. And in May, we will have a presence at the Asian Festival, and so on and so on. In September, we will have a presence at the Hungarian Fest. And in September also through October, we'll be celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. Next slide, please. In terms of equity, we support equity by providing learning opportunities and experiences for all. Through various cultural appropriate trainings, we provide staff and patrons a platform and safe space for professional and personal growth. Next slide. Opportunities for all, where we believe in providing resources and services that are tailored to the needs of our community members. So in terms of trainings, this year we have basic blindness trainings for our staff in partnership with the Cleveland Site Center. We have training partnership with Advocates for Trans Equality. For all staff, we are first starting with our executive leadership team. We have new employee orientation training, which is facilitated by Department of DIAB, where we introduce concepts surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion to all of our new staff. We monthly speak at our public services managers meeting, where we offer helpful tips and tools regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion. We provide on-demand translation services for our patrons in the event that they should need translation services to communicate effectively with our staff. We collaborate with HR for HR forums to talk about what it takes to interview people with disabilities or perceived disabilities. And we also provide lunch and learn forums for our staff in collaboration with the ERGs. Next slide, please. As it relates to inclusion, we accept and recognize all with respect and dignity. We understand the value of all community members having a seat at the table. Next slide. By recognizing all, we believe our library should be reflective of the community and people that we serve. As far as planning for 2025, we have partnerships with a variety of community members. The Cleveland Site Center, the Cleveland Hearing and Speech Center, the Cuyahoga County Board of Developmental Disabilities, Engage Cleveland, LEAP, Northeast Ohio Coalition of Disabilities and Organizations, the Palestinian American Heritage Society, Plexus, Spanish American Committee, Cuyahoga Community College, United Black Fund, Village of Healing, just to name a few. All of these community partners we will be engaging with this year.
to present programming to our community. Next slide, please. Accessibility. We recognize the importance of accessibility and value the feedback we receive from our patrons and community partners. Next slide. Accessibility for all, where we believe our library should be accessible. And as we work to revitalize and rebuild our campuses, accessibility will remain at the forefront of our planning initiatives. In terms of 2025 planning,
Salud.
God bless you. March 1st, we will have our, for Disability Awareness Month, we will have Group with the Bots. So we will be grooving with the band in partnership with Tiffany and her fabulous team, where we have extended an invitation to people and providers with developmental disabilities. We have invited them to come out and dance and have fun with the band. This is an all-inclusive event, so all are welcome, but we've extended a special invitation to people with disabilities. We will have several resource tables available here at the Cleveland Public Library to assist families that may have people with disabilities. We will actually have on site a universal changing table so that people can check that out, because we will have one here soon. That's just one of the things. We are partnering with property management. We meet monthly to go over the Skalski assessment, where we are identifying more ways that we can be accessible here at Maine.
What does FMP stand for?
The master plan.
Facility.
Facilities.
Facilities master plan.
Yeah.
Skolsky, I don't know
Yeah.
either.
The Skalski is an assessment that was taken in 2022, I believe, here for Maine, to identify accessibility enhancements that we can do. And so we meet monthly to talk about those things and to make enhancements to our building. We're also exploring wayfinding opportunities, high-tech and low-tech opportunities for our patrons here, so that they can access Brett Hall, our main location. And then we also just applied for another grant, another accessibility grant with Chi-Hub DE. So those are all of our initiatives for accessibility. Next slide. So which brings us to what the director talked about today, belonging. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, and accessibility all work towards our ultimate goal of belonging. We're working to create an environment that is welcoming to all and creates a culture where everyone feels that they belong. We are the People's University, the Center for a Diverse and Inclusive Community. We serve as a safe space and an inviting space for all. One that serves as, we are a community that serves as a premier 5-star library and the cornerstone for our community. So these are the initiatives in terms of DEIAB that the department is working towards for 2025. And we invite all to come join us in making this possible.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. That concludes the community service.
Thank you. We don't have any old business, but we do have new business. Go ahead, Brian.
Good afternoon, everyone. Each of you should have before you draft copies of the revised board policy on public meetings, as well as the board regulations or bylaws. HB 257, the legislation that allows for public bodies to hold meetings virtually and for public officials such as board trustees to attend meetings by electronic means, was signed into law last month by Governor DeWine and will be in effect on April 9th. I had a meeting last week with trustees Rodriguez and Shakarian to go over briefly what I have outlined in front of you, which is a policy, the majority of which is mandated by the new statute, revised code 121.221, as well as revisions to the board regulations to correspond with that policy. The library is not under any obligation to adopt a new policy or revisions to the current policy. Only if this board wishes to conduct meetings by virtual means or to allow board members to attend an in-person meeting by virtual means such as Zoom. Only if you wish to do those does a new policy need to be adopted. And what's before you, like I said momentarily ago, is largely dictated by what the statute requires. There are a few areas that I'd like to bring everybody's attention to, because these are areas specifically where the board would have the discretion to include or modify language to your liking. The first of those areas is on the very first section, item number 6 of the policy. So that should be page 2 of the longer document. The policy, this one states that board members are expected to attend 7 out of 10 board meetings. That is a figure that came from the workshops with Dr. Ellen Burns Cooper in 2023. It's a suggestion to include here, but it is not required. So I'm interested in your feedback if that could be included here or not, and if you wish to limit that to board meetings only or to meetings of committees. As it's written, it's intended for meetings of the entire board. Beyond that, you'll see the rest of the policy once you go to the virtual board meeting section. That is all new. And much of it, like I said, is prescribed by statute. But one of the key areas that the board needs to decide if you wish to have virtual meetings is on what basis can those meetings be held. Based on discussions with President Rodriguez and Trustee Shakarian, I'm proposing language that allows board meetings to be held only virtual. That means everybody is attending by Zoom or by other electronic means, only in the case of an emergency. An emergency is defined in the policy here as one of two situations. The first situation being it's impossible or impracticable or dangerous to have an in-person meeting. COVID, terrible weather, that sort of thing. Then we could have a fully remote board meeting. The other situation that I'm proposing as a potential emergency is a situation where we have a time-sensitive matter that needs to go to a special board meeting. It can't wait until the next regularly scheduled board meeting. And the only way we can get a quorum of the board together is by permitting board members to sign on virtually. A 10-minute board meeting completely by virtual means. That's my proposal, and I'm certainly open to any feedback. The other area that the board needs to, or has the discretion to set, are the 3 areas that are the 3 reasons for which a virtual meeting may not be allowed. Statute says virtual meetings cannot be allowed for non-routine expenses as defined by the board and for special employment decisions as defined by the board, and also for certain tax-related decisions. On the tax-related decisions, since we're not a taxing authority, I've also proposed the addition of bond issuance and levy to be consistent with the spirit of the legislation. Beyond that, I propose language for non-routine expenses, which I'm proposing purchases in excess of $1 million, purchases of real property, which already require a majority of the board to vote, and any other purchase that the board president and the chair of the finance committee jointly determine should be held at an in-person meeting. Your board regulations already allow for any meeting to be called or any item to be added to a meeting
agenda by two of the board members. For significant hiring decisions, I'm recommending that be a decision related to the hiring or termination of executive director, but not including things like renewing a contract or extending or a raise or a bonus. More routine things like that, I think, would be just as well served if we are able to do those in a regular meeting that could be by virtual means.
$1 million threshold for the major non-routine, is that in?
No.
Okay, where is that number?
That is merely a suggestion.
Okay.
There have not been, to my knowledge, any other libraries or, based on my research, any other public entities in the state that have adopted a policy to this effect yet. So it's just a suggestion. Many of our purchases are well below that, but we don't need to have any figure that's tied to a dollar amount. We don't need to include that in it. The other key area to touch on briefly is the concept of attending an in-person meeting by virtual means. That's permitted by the new legislation, and it requires again that we define what an emergency is and when attendance is permitted by virtual means. What I propose to you in the yellow highlight on the second to last page is language that allows people to attend a board meeting, one, when there is some emergency circumstances or a health issue that would prevent them from attending in person, but they would otherwise be able to attend virtually, such as recovering from surgery. We also want to have some additional flexibility, though, if we, for one reason or another, might have a board member who is able to attend virtually and observe, but we're unable to get a quorum in person. In that case, I'm proposing that we make that an emergency as well, so that the board can conduct its business as we should. Beyond that, I'd like to just direct your attention briefly to the board of regulations. The majority of the changes in there fall into three categories. On the first page are very minor changes that, if you choose to adopt a revised policy in the form that I presented to you, those changes are needed just to refer to the fact that virtual board meetings and virtual attendance are allowed. On the second page of the board regulations is proposed language that creates the ability for the board president to appoint a proxy during joint committee meetings to vote when one committee has fewer than a quorum of its members present, and there is somebody else, a board member in attendance at that meeting from another committee. Now, the committee will be able to take a vote and make a recommendation. On the final page, you will find a board policy on ethics. That is merely a suggestion. In my research for the revised policy and the policy concept that I just discussed, I discovered that many libraries in Ohio and nationwide have adopted the very same ethics statement that's before you. It was published in 2012 by United for Libraries, which is a division of the American Library Association, and I think it might be a best practice to include that here. With that, and with the board's approval, if you wish to proceed with the revised regulations and with the revised policy, my plan would be to present the regulations for their first reading at next month's board meeting, and to present you with a revised draft, if one is needed, of the policy for your review. At the April board meeting, could be the second reading of the regulations and the vote for its passage, as well as that for the policy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for all the work, Brian.
Thank
It really
you.
is. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Director. At this time, we have a public comment section. Hi, Stephen. I don't know if you saw me wave to you, but come on in. Come on up. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to all you too.
Thank you.
Well, I'm glad to see that public courtesy phones are expanding even in the branches now. You never know when you're gonna need those phones for an emergency, so I'm glad to see it coming around and going to the branches. And the other issue I wanna talk about, I'm gonna go back to the 1980s when they had some TV and films that dealt with the dangers of technology, and they warned us about it. One example was Superman 3, and in Superman 3 you had the supercomputer genius. He constructed the world's largest supercomputer out in the western United States. That computer had artificial intelligence, everything, and at one point the guy wanted to shut down that computer, but he could not. That computer had its own power, and it wouldn't listen to him anymore. The computer started stealing power from the world. It started taking over the world. The guy couldn't control that computer anymore, and so it was hard for him to stop that supercomputer that had a mind of its own, and it was shutting down the world. And another example of computer danger was that in the 1980s, the original Night Court with Judge Harry Stone and Dan Fielding. And inside that Night Court episode, inside the court, there was this little schoolboy. He had a portable computer. It's almost like a laptop, like a 1980s version of a laptop. That little boy with his portable computer, he started scaring everybody with that little computer. He started saying, with this button, he could shut down all of New York City. And then he started going after Dan Fielding and said, with Dan, he's going to shut down all of Dan's, he's going to freeze all of Dan's credit card accounts by pressing that button. So that Night Court episode has scared people about technology. So those are two examples about dangers of technology. Superman 3 with that supercomputer genius who couldn't stop the computer. In that 1980s Night Court with that little boy with this mini computer, he bullied people and scared people with that. So now people got to get away from technology. Go camping, go out into the country, watch reruns of the Andy Griffith Show, and sweet little Mayberry can help save the world.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, David.
Hey, Stephen, just for the record, Trustee Rashid and I weren't born yet. We were born. I'm gonna catch up on that. I'm just messing with you.
He didn't.
No?
It was a good one. We're gonna find that episode.
No.
I was teased. I did not put you on the spot like that.
But I
We're gonna
watched the
find that.
Superman film, but not the other one.
It was just a joke. I'm sorry. My friend.
Not at all.
We also have a couple other public comments that were sent in electronically. And it was basically sent in by the same person, Miss B. Davis. I know who Miss B. Davis is. There was a lady that used those same initials on a comedy show many years ago. I don't know. I do remember. So, but it was about they were expressing their concerns about why we did not close during the excessive coldness that was gripping our city. And they sent in two of those talking about it. And reading them now as opposed to when we did have that cold snap, we've been in a cold snap for now, over 2 weeks? I mean, yeah, that was the beginning of when we were having single digit temperatures or negative. So I do understand. But now it's like I wake up yesterday morning and it was 8 degrees. I'm like, what is this going to stop? So, even nobody expected it to last this long. But here we are, and it is. And we have to be here available for our patrons, not only as a warming center, but for people who don't have electricity. Kids are out of school. Who knows what their situation is at home? But here at the library, we're here to help everyone, whether it's with Wi-Fi. Sorry about that, Steve. Help them with the computers, and just to be someplace here that's safe for them, where they could be warm at all times. So yes, we did get a couple. But on the same note, when we did close back a couple months ago for, Employee Appreciation Day is like, why weren't we open? So here we are. So, but yes, this cold snap has continued. Hopefully it will end tomorrow because I'm tired and done. And it is cold. It's cold for all of us and we do know the rules. Luckily, living in Northeast Ohio, this is not the first time. And I'm sure it's not going to be the next. And I wish, we have to sit here and we do think about our employees and our patrons and everyone else. And we try to make sure everyone is comfortable coming in and or leaving work at all times. So I thank you. If there are no other issues. or
I move to
concerns,
adjourn.
I move to adjourn. Second. Thank you.